Hi, I'm Amy Rossman, Executive Director of Rodman for Kids, a nonprofit focused on empowering youth charities to build brighter futures for kids, and your co-host of the Brighter Futures podcast.
And I'm Jane Lima, Marketing and Communications Manager at Rodman for Kids, your other co-host of the Brighter Futures podcast, where we'll be telling the stories behind the impact in the people building brighter futures.
This isn't just a podcast about impact. It's about the people behind it, the communities who come together, the connections that drive change, and the shared belief that we can build something better for kids together.
On the Brighter Futures podcast, we will shine a light on the partnerships, programs, and people behind the impact, because brighter futures don't just happen, they're built together. Today, we're sitting down with Tivon Marcus from our longtime partner and champion of our Theater for Kids program, Broadway in Boston. This is perfect timing, as next week we will be hosting a buyout performance of Hamilton at the Citizens Opera House, where we will reach the milestone of 100,000 kids impacted by our Theater for Kids program. And we are still a new podcast, but if I knew how to do like air horns or applause, I would put it, because it's amazing. So a little bit about Tivon. Tivon is the Vice President of Broadway in Boston, overseeing Broadway presenting and venue operations for Broadway across America in Boston, part of the John Gore organization. As a 20-plus year veteran of the live entertainment industry, Tivon has a passion for the arts and bringing people together to share an extraordinary experience. Other roles that Tivon has served are Director of Programming at Broadway across America, Booking Manager at the Nassau Coliseum in Long Island, New York, and as a booking agent at Alan Wasser Associates Touring. Tivon started as a theater kid, which he will talk a little bit more about in the episode. First introduced to the theater by his grandparents, and from that moment, he was hooked on the possibilities of what theater and the arts can bring. And we are so grateful that Tivon is just a huge supporter of Rodman for Kids and the incredible work that we do here. So, Amy, do you want to tell us a little bit about Broadway in Boston and their kind of connection to Rodman for Kids?
Absolutely. Broadway in Boston has been the premier partner of Theater for Kids really since the program began more than 20 years ago. And Tivon's predecessors were instrumental in helping us develop the program, but he's now been in the position of VP at Broadway in Boston for a decade. And since he took the reins, he has really just been a champion unlike any other for our Theater for Kids program and for Rodman for Kids as a whole. Whether, he is working on getting us the best pricing possible or finding a way for his Broadway and Boston patrons to donate the cost of their unused tickets to Rodman for Kids. He even nominated Don Rodman for a Broadway League Award, which he received. Just Tivon, we never have to wonder if he has our very best interests at heart. And he always goes a step beyond anything that we're really expecting from him as a partner and a champion at Broadway in Boston. And it starts with him at the top, but that goes right down the line. And the whole team there, especially Jen Kelly Chambers and Sheehan, who we work with since the beginning, they're all just so good to us. And I'm really excited that we get to talk to Tivon on the pod today. To help facilitate this conversation, we're going to have Rodman for Kids Director of Programs, Bill Stiles, join us today. Bill has been instrumental in expanding our Theater for Kids program, and he's only been with us for 8 short months. But we can think of no one better to contribute to this conversation about Theater for Kids. Welcome, Bill.
Thanks so much. Yeah, I'm looking forward to this. It's been a pleasure working with Tivon over at Broadway in Boston over the last 8 months, having been in the theater space, doing some work with Elliott Norton Awards over the past few years, as well as sort of my education background and connecting that to the transferable skills from theater. The conversation is going to be a really exciting one with Tivon to just dig a little bit deeper into all the things that make the relationship between Rodman for Kids and Broadway and Boston tick.
Welcome to the podcast.
Thank you for having me. This is wonderful.
Fantastic. Let's jump into a couple of questions. So first, I know my background is in education. So a major question to me is always, what do you see as the educational value of theatrical performances?
Of course. Well, and as I was thinking about this question, it's so many different things. And it's about, first the access and the incredible opportunity that you guys bring, bringing all of these kids to the theater. Having the kids leave their communities, their schools, their neighborhoods, and coming to, downtown Boston or wherever it may be, and being with all of these other kids who have also left their communities and are coming together to a place where everyone feels welcome and where they belong. And to go into this, these beautiful spaces that many times are very historic and be there together. I think that from at the start is so educational for these kids, just to have that experience. Then I think actually there's something that to be said about the experience of everything that's happening around them. We're not even just talking about what's on stage, but sure, the technicians, all the ushers, all of the people that make that performance that day happen for these kids. I think it is a really amazing lesson in teamwork. And that, when folks come together, anything can happen, these really magical experiences. Then of course there's the stage, and what's the performance and what's happening on stage, if that exposes them to a different point of view or a different experience or a new type of music or a new dance move, or maybe it's something, that they're seeing actors and performers work out of something that they're working through, and it helps them sort of guide them through, whatever that may be. I think that in itself, just that experience of the performance itself is so educational. Then the performance is over. And as kids always do, they tell you exactly what they think.
They do.
And that is so important and educational too, because they're telling each other. And I think about the Rodman performances and how, the curtain goes down, the lights go up, and the chatter is so, loud and wonderful. And they're all talking about what they just experienced and what they saw. And they're thinking creatively and critically, and that is such an important moment in educational benefit as well. And then, frankly, lastly, I'll just share that there are so many jobs in the theater, and I think that having and whomever else attend these performances and seeing that great teamwork that we've been talking about. Mm-hmm. There are so many career opportunities and really, really great career opportunities. Hopefully the kids, as they're seeing these shows and experiencing this great moment, they're also seeing like, wow, I could do this. I could be a technician. I could be on the stage. I could, be in the box office. These are all just such wonderful jobs and experiences.
I love hearing you talk about it like that, because it relates so much to our Q model and the way we try to make the theater experience really whole. And it's not just that 2 or 3 hours of watching the show, but everything that comes before and after.
Absolutely.
So, and listening to the kids, the chatter walking out of the theater might be my favorite part
100%.
of our Theater for Kids performances. Just kind of getting those like immediate reactions.
Yeah.
And I love that you talked about like teamwork and the camaraderie of all the different pieces to come together, because my background is as a guidance counselor previously, and that transferable skill thing is so important. And unless you see something, you can't learn something. Right. And so seeing those skills, whether you're going into the arts or whether it's just an experience and a passion, or whether it's something you're going to see once and it's something that helps develop a knowledge of things you love or don't love, that's really important and critical to childhood development. So I love that you brought that up. Thank you. So with Hamilton next week, how do you see the audiences responding to the themes? Because we've got history, we've got identity, we've got resilience on stage. And then there's that underline as well of that, like just the groundbreaking history that Hamilton itself makes. So how do you feel that students will be our youth will be responding to that?
I think everyone is going to respond to it in their own way. I think that Hamilton is such an incredible piece that has been in our cultural realm for a decade now. And I think that everyone has had their own experience, probably experiencing Hamilton, whether they've already seen it on stage or heard the music or heard about it. And I think perhaps everyone is coming in and going to experience it in their own way. There are so many amazing, wonderful moments and things to take away from the show. It really is truly incredible. A great history lesson that I think that everyone, it's hard not to be so engaged and intrigued to see this history lesson of our founding fathers of of the U.S., but told with perhaps a perspective that allows additional access for so many. So I think everyone will come at it at their own way.
Absolutely. Love that. So, thinking about like transformative pieces, those shows that really impact youth, what do you think are some of the most transformative shows that youth audiences will connect with? And I'm sort of going to throw a little curveball at you with like, what were some of those transformative shows for you and your youth?
Let me just talk about my own first experience of the theater. So my grandparents took me to go see Phantom of the Opera. And I'm sure for so many people, this was their first Broadway show. And I remember sitting in the audience and, at the start of the show, and you know how the show starts with the auction scene.
Mhm.
The chandelier is on the stage floor. The auctioneer is sort of describing, this chandelier. And then all of a sudden, boom. And there's this incredible scene change. And now this was probably the early 90s. So technical theater has come a long way since then, right? But I remember as a kid, I remember being so enthralled by that scene change and the music and everything happening all at once. And it was a really transformative moment for me. And I think going back to the conversation we are having before about teamwork is that, wow, this is not just someone pushing a button. This is all of these things happening all at once. This is the orchestra playing. This is, the technicians making the scene change happen. And I'm having this experience. I'm having this, emotional reaction. And I remember just being absolutely hooked and engaged and enthralled since that point. So for me, that experience was so transformative. But I think another way to answer that question is I really do believe that every experience in the theater is transformative. And there's so many amazing shows, that you guys have brought the kids to see. And I mean, my goodness, we're talking about the 1,000th kid coming to Hamilton, and every single one of those kids who have experienced, whether it be Hamilton prior or, Wicked or so many other shows that you guys have brought the kids to, they've all been transformative experiences for the kids.
Absolutely. You always have that one that sort of you remember and it's that hook. For me, it's Scarlet Pimpernel. So like I feel that like you have that pang towards something, but it's absolutely all of the shows. You don't know which one's going to grab somebody because they could be really looking at that front stage, behind stage, or even that front of house aspect of the show as they experience it.
So my first theater experience, we must be in the same age range, one, because it was in New York in the early 90s to see Phantom of the Opera. That was my first like real, had gone to local theater, but that was my first real show. And, much like you, it really stuck with me. I was a kid who was really into music and theater. And, it's not something that I made a career out of directly, but I remember really thinking the same. Like,
you've made a career out of it.
I have in this way, I guess. Yeah. But it was powerful. I'll never forget it. Never forget it.
So just thinking about the partnership, because we're talking about this 100,000th kid for Rodman for Kids, years and years of working directly with Broadway in Boston. Well, why is community partnership such a big piece for Broadway in Boston and the arts community in general?
Yeah, I think the truth of the matter is the community is who we serve and what we do. And frankly, without the community, there is no audience. We need the community to be a part of everything that we do. So engaging with the community in all aspects is so incredibly important. And as it relates specifically with Rodman and the kids, these kids are our audiences of tomorrow. I mean, you're bringing them in to have this first experience, and hopefully, they get that hook that we've just been talking about, and then that continues for a lifetime experiences of not just theater, but all of the arts, including visual arts. I think there's so many wonderful things that theater does to expose kids to the possibilities of the arts, to see something in a different way. But the other piece of it is, we're not doing the shows for ourselves. We're really doing the shows for the community, and I think it's important for us to also hear from the community and hear about the types of shows they're interested in seeing too. That's really important for us as well. So everything we do is about community.
Love that. And I love you sort of mentioning all the other arts aspects as well, because I've always felt like theater is a place where they all come to collaborate together because you've got that costuming and design, you've got set design. So there's a lot of visual art embedded in there. And then, of course, the music, the performance, all of those different art components come together. So I really love that and the sense of community, even between the different art aspects. So how do partnerships like the one with Rodman for Kids deepen your work in the community?
You guys are just such incredible partners, and I mean, from a personal level, I get so much joy of being there when the kids are there, when you guys are there, and so from a personal level, it is so deeply meaningful to me. But but again, I think it goes to, the point before about everything we do is about the community, and the kids are um, are the beginnings of something that, will hopefully carry through to be so much greater.
And I think, just to sort of tie one additional question onto that tapestry there, it's what's made this partnership in particular sort of lasting and meaningful? It's been, 23 years, Amy. Am I hitting on the history right here?
I think so.
I'm still relatively a newbie, so I want to make sure I'm getting my dates right. But 23 years of history working between Rodman for Kids and Broadway in Boston, that's hard to do. Partnerships ebb and flow. What has made this sort of a lasting one?
I mean, I think there's so many things, I guess to go back to, what is the why are we all doing this, right? And it goes back to the 100,000 kid. We were all theater kids or of our own way, and we all had our very first experience, and it was so transformative. And I was lucky to have my grandparents take me to the theater to see the Phantom of the Opera, for a similar situation, it sounds, but not everybody has that opportunity. And you are doing that for all of these kids. And so I think that truly is, at the end of the day, what this is all about. And the impact that we see as Broadway in Boston on these kids and on what you're doing is so incredibly phenomenal that there's no other way, like, that this partnership is so important, that I actually don't even I don't even think of it even just as a partnership. I think of it as you are my my arm. Like you are one of the aspects of what we do. And I'm so proud to be working with Rodman for Kids.
It means so much to hear you say that because similarly, you're our arm too, because we can't talk about theater for kids without talking about Broadway in Boston. I mean, it's part of the first or second sentence when people say, tell us about theater for kids. We have this partner who's been with us since the beginning, who's such a champion for this program. And we couldn't do it without you. And that 100,000th kid milestone, we wouldn't be there without this partnership either. I think it's an achievement that sort of belongs to all of us. That we've got you together, and we're looking forward to celebrating it.
Absolutely. And I think, as I mentioned, the relative newbie at the table here, when there's a lot of experience around the table, it's incredible to walk in and see a partnership as strong as the one between Rodman for Kids and Broadway in Boston, because I've seen partnerships that ebb and flow. I've worked in different areas where the partnership is great until something pivots and changes. To see evolution together is really an incredible thing. And it's very clear that this partnership has ebbed and flowed together with change over time. And that's, to me, what makes a lasting partnership. And I think what I saw immediately is special walking in the door between the partnership of the two organizations.
I think one of the things, again, that keeps it so alive and fresh is that as we're talking about every single show and as we're talking about every single opportunity, I'm getting it right now. And I can't speak for you, but I know we've talked about it. we still get goosebumps to think about even just that one kid, just that one kid who's going to that one show. And that in itself is what it's all about.
Absolutely.
So, pivoting a little bit to sort of theater in the larger scale, what do you think continues to bring people into major shows like Hamilton, and especially young people? Thinking through like what motivates that continuing popularity of some theatrical shows and about theater in general.
Honestly, I think what's so remarkable about the theater and what we do is that it is a live experience, and it is something that we as humans, frankly, have a strong connection with. That, in this digital age of, computers and cell phones and, everything else and TV screens, that we crave the experience of being together with others. And it's not new. This is something that's been going on for all of, mankind. That, as you look at, the history of of humans, there was always moments of gathering and performing and entertaining, and we're telling stories. And I truly believe that, that is what is continues to bring people back to the theater and to places, where they can be together and experience something together.
Love that. That's certainly what keeps bringing me back. Amy, I don't know if that's the same for you.
Absolutely. And I think going back to what you said at the beginning, that being there with other people and experiencing it together is really powerful and something we're trying to introduce kids to.
Especially in the phrase is outdated at this point, but in the post-COVID world,
In the post-COVID
bringing
world,
people
yes.
together is more important than ever because we saw what it was like, but we didn't have that. And I think that theater has sort of had a renewed energy since that really stands out to me. So just thinking about your own, sort of experience with the Theater for Kids program, do you have a particular moment that stands out to you as sort of a special moment from us bringing kids to a Broadway in Boston show?
It really is every moment. Honestly. It's really hard.
I understand.
I mean, I'll say that, from the walk-in and seeing the kids see this space and the theater wherever we are, whether, in Boston, I know many times we're working in the Opera House or sometimes it's in the Colonial. Seeing the kids see the space is just so magical. You see them see this place for the first time, standing in the back of the theater and being with them as they're experiencing the show and how vocal they are and the oohs and the ahs and all of that kind of stuff is so special. And frankly, it's one of the things that I love most about my job with the kids in the theater or even adults hearing their reactions too. It's very, very special. And I love how everyone gets to enjoy this experience together. And just the smiles on all of their faces and, knowing that they're having this wonderful, wonderful experience that, again, going back to our first experiences that we've all been talking about, that they're having that then in that moment. That is so cool and so magical, and what amazing work that you guys do.
Well, we do it with you. And when you talk about the kids' reactions, that has got to be my favorite part of the kids' performances. And I always say to people, you think you've seen Hamilton, but you haven't seen Hamilton with 2,000 kids because the way they react to the show is so completely unfiltered and pure. They're not thinking about how they're supposed to react. It's just what comes out. And it's a completely different energy in the room, in the theater. That's what I always look forward to.
Yeah, even with just a few shows under my belt, that has very much been my experience as well. I've jokingly told Amy, because I'm a Patriots fan, I hearken to Tom Brady and say my favorite moment is the next one. But it's truly that experience, like seeing them walk through the doors for the first time is really an incredible experience. Amy, I know you have a couple questions for Tivon as well here.
I do. So something we do for every episode, Tivon, as we wrap up is to ask you a question about your childhood. We like to think everyone can sort of relate to our work and our cause because we were all kids once. And I'm interested in what one person, activity, or memory from your childhood really shaped who you are today.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Well, I talked about that Phantom experience, so I that was certainly a big shaper, my first Broadway experience. So, but I'll share another one. In middle school, I was asked to be in a play, in a musical. And it was Scrooge the musical. I was cast as Scrooge.
Oh, I love
and I was so nervous. I was, a little kid, and I was like, oh my God, and I have to sing in front of all these people, and this is so scary. And the first scene happens, and I'm doing my lines, whatever. And then it comes to my first song. And I'm just so nervous that I forget my lines. I forget the lines. And it was one of those moments, and it's great to be able to look back at it because you look at it and you see all the things that were happening. But as a kid, you're just kind of figuring it out and you're putting it together in that moment. It was one of those moments that really I could have run off the stage.
Sure.
I could have been like, oh my God, I forgot my lines. I could, I could have done that. Or I could have stood there, which I did. And I just started humming the song. And I remember, and actually there's video, which, we'll make sure that nobody ever sees. But I think that I was like, waving my hands to go along with my humming. And, I kind of had a little sense of humor about it.
Mm-hmm.
We got through it and I went off stage and the show went on, And I think that that experience was so impactful in so many ways. And it really showed in that moment that you can face anything. Fear is just fear. I don't know if I knew as a middle school kid if that's actually what I was thinking, but I think now, looking back at it, and sometimes it's okay to use a little humor to get us through some situations. What an incredible skill that was to be skills really that was to learn there. But I'll jump ahead a little bit. I know you only asked for one, but I was fortunate enough to go to theater school and had some incredible teachers and the skills that one learns with a theater education are long lasting and can be transferred to just about anything. You learn to take up space, you know, to read a room, to to work as a team, to work with sometimes challenging people on a team. These are all such important lessons, and I really valued those lessons. And I truly think that all of these things, my first experience at Phantom of the Opera, that middle school, forgetting my lines, and then of course my great education really was able to bring me here today. And I am so excited that what you guys are doing and these 100,000 kids. And, my goodness, it's going to be 200,000, before we know it, right? That this is just the spark, just the very beginning of the journey that is going to take all of these kids to some incredible, incredible places.
It's really neat to think that 10 years from now, 20 years from now, some of these kids might be reflecting back on this as their first experience of the spark. That's very special. Do you remember the song from Scrooge and King Treat Us? I know you know the lyrics now.
No, I don't remember. I don't remember.
But we'll let it go.
We'll put the bounty out for that video on socials.
I remember there was Christmas is a monumental humbug. I think I remember something like that.
I forgot that. I love it. We also, in every episode, see, this is a favorite part of our podcast. We like to ask you a question that was submitted by one of the kids we impact. And the question we have for you is from a young woman named Jasmine. She is now 18 and pursuing her education in theater. But when we first brought kids to Hamilton in 2018, she was just 11 years old and was just thrilled to have the opportunity to go see this show. So we thought it made sense as we're bringing Hamilton back to have a question from her. And what she wanted to know was what is your favorite memory while doing community work as VP of Broadway in Boston? And it could be a memory as large as an entire company event to as small as a child's reaction to the theater.
Well, I think we kind of talked a little bit about this, but I will never forget when we have the Rodman buyout of Hamilton in that first run. And as soon as the lights went down and there was that first beat of the music, the screaming. The kids were screaming, and they were screaming as if we were at the biggest rock concert or whatever concert that any of us have ever been to. And it was so, so impactful, and it was so memorable, and it was so special. And again, the goosebumps, it really is the reason why we do this.
It is. No question. I love that.
As we're been talking with our groups about coming to this upcoming buyout of Hamilton, the responses are very much my classroom was crying and screaming. Like, we're so excited. The kids were bouncing off the walls when we told them. So it's very much that lasting power, not just for Hamilton, but that, as we've talked about the entire time, that bringing youth to theater and giving them this experience and this opportunity to get that bug and get that spark so that they too one day may hum on stage while they think of the words. I love it. I love it.
Jasmine, who asked you that question, it's interesting that was your moment, because we asked her to share her favorite theater memory. And I'm going to read it so that it's verbatim. She said, "I know my favorite memory is the first time I walked into the Citizens Opera House and looked up at the ceiling, and that would have been that Hamilton show. I had and still haven't seen anything so beautiful before. I was in awe at everything around me and couldn't believe I was standing in what felt like a sacred place of the arts. It's still the first thing I do, and I'm getting the goosebumps again. It's still the first thing I do anytime I see a show there is stare at the ceiling and feel like I'm surrounded by the dreams and love of every actor that's ever been on that stage. and also feel so thankful for the charity work of these gracious people who are the reason I got there in the first place. Wow, that's
Wonderful.
pretty good. Powerful. That's powerful.
One of 100,000.
One of 100,000. That's right. We just want to thank Bill and Tivon for being on today's episode of the Brighter Futures podcast. I loved hearing about everyone's first theater experience, and having known Tivon for a decade, I don't think I will ever look at him again without thinking about him playing Scrooge in his first theater production. And it is now a personal goal of mine to get him to sing me the lyrics that he once forgot at some point. So
Or
I'm
hum
gonna
them.
work really hard on that, or even hum them. I would accept a hum. As always, we'd like to leave you with a reflection question. So today I'd like you to think about, what does access mean to you, and how can you help provide access for others?
Thank you for listening to the Brighter Futures podcast, where every story we share is a reminder that brighter futures don't just happen, they're built together. If today's episode moved you, consider sharing it or leaving us a review. And if you want to learn more about how you can be a part of this journey, visit rodmanforkids.org.